Uh, okay, that was an error. So, you must be wondering, what am I doing here with Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney? Did we finish this game? Yeah, we did. However, I did not want to just jump right into the next game without making another video. And another question which must be on your mind is, what's up with this view? Yeah, I just changed the view because I wanted you guys to see the entire picture for the screens, I guess. I mean, take a look. See, this is the whole thing looks. Uh, if you remember how I showed it before starting the next case and all that, how the screens were split, I thought you just might want to have a nice look at these. So yeah, we've got the first case, the first turnabout, then turnabout sisters, then we've got turnabout samurai. Look at our cheerleader Maya there. Turnabout goodbyes, and finally rise from the ashes. So yeah, the entire thing just pictures up the entire courtroom with the defendant, the witness stand, the defendant, the prosecution, defense and prosecution. There we go, the emblem and all that. So yeah, this is basically how it all looks. Now let's go back. So, uh, that done. I thought before we go on ahead, we'll just have a little, not a recap, because come on, you guys followed up so far. And if you haven't, if this is the very first video watching, cool, cool. I hope you know the story. If you don't, it's not a lot of spoilers ahead, or maybe not that much. I just recommend either watching the anime or watching my playthrough, hopefully, or watching someone else's playthrough, I guess, or maybe just playing the game yourself, and then come back here, I guess. Um, It's all my own personal take and my personal opinions of the first game. Yes, I have played the other games. No, I am not going to take my opinions of those games and put them over here. I'm trying to not let that affect what I'm speaking about this game. So, those of you all who are familiar with the other games like me and might want to argue about certain points with me, just note that I'm talking solely about the first game. I'm talking about the first game as a standalone game, with nothing else coming after it. Like, okay, you're playing this game for the first time or 100th time, whatever. What is your feeling about all these people, the stories here? That's it. So, on that note, let's begin. When we look at these cases, for an introductory case, the first turnabout, like its name, did a good job of introducing Phoenix and introducing the game to all of us. Was it a brilliant case? No. But was it interesting? In its own way, yes, because it's a new game, introducing new characters, new gameplay. Overall, it was a pretty good start. Now, one thing is, for a game which is meant to be, which has a tutorial, the other stages have to be superior to the tutorial level, and this game did that well. Because if I were to rate all the cases, this case would certainly be at the bottom of the list. While it was an interesting case and it was brilliant characters, it was not my favorite in this entire game. Yeah, I am saying that other cases were better. So, that way, it's a plus point in my book. On the other hand, though, tutorial cases or levels tend to be a bit more of a bore or a chore. In this game, because it's the first time and all that stuff, it's understandable that it should be very easy. But I did not find it a bore, even though I was playing it again and I could just skip the tutorial. I just wanted to skip the tutorial and go on ahead quickly. I did not feel bored. The case was good enough and interesting. The Thinker statue was brilliant. The time zones and the difference, of course. The time zones was something which would not, which would strike you quickly, but you wouldn't get the relevance of the time difference because of the, what do you say, the game, the way it's made, like you do not know which time zone is the game using itself. So, yeah. But apart from that aspect, it doesn't ruin your gaming experience because they made it fairly obvious that the time difference is one of the major plot points. So, there again, at least there's a counter for it. Uh, so that's what I have to say about the first case, actually. And it's sort of a pretty good start off with the puns itself. After all, we have Salt as our witness, so yeah. And Lucy Stone was literally killed. Not Lucy, sorry, Cindy Stone was literally killed by the Thinker statue, which is, when you think about it, as hard as stone, considering that it was handmade and it was a statue clock, but still. Second episode turned about sisters. As the title suggests, it was focusing about the sisters, Mia and Maya Fey. Yes, the sidekick comes over here, Maya Fey. Brilliant person added over here. Someone who um, compliments him well. She's not different from Phoenix, but at the same time, she's not the same as him. What I liked, the thing is about most games is whenever you have your sidekick coming in, they either tend to steal the show for themselves or they tend to be alienated or always made like the brunt of jokes. Or they tend to be this lovely character you love a whole lot more than your protagonist. What I like here is like this takes up one of the other choices, the one which I didn't mention, obviously, the one wherein the protagonist is still superior, but the sidekick complements them in such a way that you love both of them. You love their dynamic and the way they interact. It is one of the most winning points for like the game. Most of the games which have this kind of a gimmick uh, they win my favor. And this game surely did it with Maya and Phoenix. Of course, along with that, we have the introduction of our um, rival, the antagonist, Edgeworth. But can I really call him our antagonist at this point? The answer is a no. He's more like kind of like how Deadpool is. You know, he's the protagonist, he's the antagonist at the same time. Um, Basically, the anti hero. He's the opposite side of Phoenix. Compliments him in the opposite manner, while at the same time being our rival, but he's not the bad guy. Yeah, that's basically it. It was a brilliant way to introduce him, showing how he is like an upstanding man, brilliant, but there is something about him that kind of just irks you, and you just keep wondering whether he's involved in the foul play because, come on, we had a clear sense of bribing with these two here. So, yeah. And of course, we had an introduction of weird characters. Yeah, I put my mouse there. Let's go on to the next case. Turnabout Samurai. This case annoyed me, and if you follow my playthrough, you must have seen that I was kind of lost in between during the investigations. I found it a bit of a drag. Did I like characters? Nah, Salmonella was a creep. I didn't like him. Old bag, I could have lived without her. Edgeworth too. I mean, Edgeworth could have lived without her. I didn't say I could live without Edgeworth. Even the other girl whose name I can't seem to remember at this point. But then, what else? The only thing I can just mention, apart from the characters, it's just that the investigation seemed a lot more of a drag, so I didn't enjoy it as much. However, the court parts, the trials, the courtroom parts of the game were amazing, especially the final trial. I have to say that I enjoyed this case a whole lot solely because of the courtroom parts. Yeah, unfortunately, the investigations just didn't hold up much for me. It was a bit of a drag. I get why we had to do it. I get why it's necessary. I mean, if we didn't do what we had to do, we would not have gotten as far as we would have. But it bored me. There were times when I just lost interest, and I'm pretty sure if anyone was watching the gameplay must have felt bored too. Um, Anyways, so yeah, that's about it actually about this case. So yeah, it's not one of my top tier of favorite cases solely because of that fact. Only amazing trial. I will not deny it because it was the trial when we see our characters evolve. Like Edge was helping us at the end. We we realize that maybe there's hope. Maybe he's not who we thought he was. Maybe it's just an appearance, you know. So I like that they kept that opening. It's just started. There's like a gradual shift while we started getting closer to Maya and started having fun with her. Then we come to turn about goodbyes. I'm feeling that no one expected a case like this to appear in the first game itself, and it felt a bit too soon. But it makes sense because this was the case that made this game. Like, literally. It was amazing. Even the investigation and all that. Sure, it had its own dragging moments because it's an investigation. That's how it is at this point. But it was brilliantly done. Especially Manfred von Karma and his demon objections. However, the only thing, if I have to complain, is the fact that it was made kind of obvious to us that Manfred ain't a good guy. Of course, his link to the case was not obvious until a bit later, but I felt they could have been handled a bit more discreetly. Okay, here's where I kind of just break off a bit and go on a bit of a rant about the next games and say that in the later games, things are not as obvious. A fact which I love. Except for again, there's always like one or two times when it's made very obvious, but it's not for cases which you think it would be. Just putting it out there. I just thought I just felt like I had to say that because that's one thing many people keep wondering, at this point, like, is it really going to be so obvious next time one was about who's the murderer and stuff? Like, no, no. Like, if you think about it, for this case in particular, this dude was literally the murderer. The cross-examination of the parrot helped us identify this guy as the murderer. Von Kammer was the murderer of Edgeworth's father, Gregory Edgeworth, in the DL6 incident. So, while Manfred was obvious as a villain, this guy with amnesia was not an obvious choice until much later. In fact, his existence was not very clear until much later. So, yeah, the other games, simpler cases are as obvious as this one, if you want me to put it that way. But yeah, in the later games and stuff, it's not very obvious who's the killer. I can't even say the tutorial cases makes it obvious because no, it was just the thing they put for this game because it's an introductory game. That said, I think that's enough of going on about the other games. Let's get back to this. Characters. They were all memorable in this one and it's brilliant. What more can I say? This case is a pretty controversial one. Quite a lot of people hate it, but then there are quite a lot of us who love it. Overall, if it was not obvious, I loved this case. In fact, in this game, I felt like as we progressed through the cases, each episode, as we mentioned, each episode kept getting better and better. My personal opinion. Sure, I would rate the investigation of the third episode lower than the second one, but that's it. Apart from that, I felt like it just kept improving, and this case is no exception. Of course, it's a bit more advanced as compared to the other cases. It's pretty lengthy. If I'm not wrong, it's one of the lengthiest cases in the entire um, series which I have played so far. I'm not counting about the spin-offs. I'm just talking about the original series. That is Phoenix Wright Ace Attorney, Justice for All, Trials and Tribulations, Apollo Justice, and Dual Destinies. Um, I won't count Dual Destinies and Apollo Justice. I'll just count the main trilogy that is up to Trials and Tribulations. And until then, this case is the largest one, if I am not wrong. The only one that can beat its length, I guess, might be the third game, but not very sure. But yeah, it's a pretty sudden shift, from shorter cases and trials, you come to the super long ones. About like each trial is about 2 hours long, and the investigations is just as long as the trials. So yeah, so it's a pretty lengthy one. I like the characters a lot. when I say I like the characters, I don't mean like I love them as people. No, I just like how the characters are portrayed over here. Yes, Jake Marshall sure did get on my nerves and I hated him. But Injust Star proved to be much better in the end. Uh, it's still a nice gimmick. I like the way they added a lot of variety, and here the localization effect makes sense. Okay, it makes sense about the system of the law and stuff. Like, hey, at least we're doing glory shit here. So I liked it a lot. Okay, um, yeah, for that reason, even this fourth episode made sense. Statute of limitations and all that stuff. Here, evidence law and all that. So I like that a whole lot. And it also touches the fact of the corruption which was clearly being shown in the second episode and in the fourth episode. So yeah, brilliant stuff. And it uh, okay, this I have to say it connects up with the second game, technically speaking. Events of second game made sense on their own, yes, but there was a certain event which seemed a bit too abrupt and sudden. uh this case this kind of meshes in well and makes sense. It's a shame though that they couldn't make much changes in the second game with regards to this, to make it even more smooth. So I get the reason why quite a lot of people hate this case is because it's obviously been pushed in at the last moment and it uh, doesn't continue with that flow right afterwards. However, in the long run, if you look for character development and stuff, it makes a whole lot more sense. So yeah, it's like a necessary evil that wasn't really necessary. But as a case in the first game, it was pretty great. You can let me know in the comments what you thought about these cases. That said, we're done talking about all of the cases. Now let's talk about our um, the characters. When I'm saying about the characters, I'm going to talk about our defense and our protagonist antagonist basically. Not going to much detail here, but just that the setting up of the universe was great, brilliant. I liked it a lot. We got the timeline, we understood from the trials and codes. In the first case, I'm pretty sure not everyone paid that much attention to the courtroom numbers and the timestamps and the date stamps. However, I recommend doing so from the next game onwards. Because from then on, the time shift and all that, the skips and stuff make a huge difference. In fact, the skip from the second to the third case and the fourth case to the fifth case are highlighted by like a difference of 2 months. 2 months. And third and fourth case have a difference of half a year, if I'm not wrong. Because we jump from from June, we jump to December. So yeah, it creates a whole lot of difference when you think about it. I mean, if you're going to look at a character deeply, it's something which I tend to do. Think about things a lot more later on. And when I have nothing better to do, clearly. So yeah. Let's talk about some of the characters whom I feel I should talk about. Naturally, one of the characters I would have to talk about is Edgeworth. Uh, some people feel like he's an overrated character. Some think he's a pretty brilliant character. I kind of side with the latter. He's a pretty brilliant character. Sure, people put him above a certain pedestal, but you can't deny that he's a pretty great character. He's got a lot of popularity. The only thing that kind of makes me upset is when I hear the fact that he's more popular than Phoenix. Like, ouch. My dude, Phoenix is pretty great, okay? Besides that, Ajit is a pretty cool character here. We see him change from an antagonist to an anti-hero to a sort of like we come to this understanding that hey, he is a possible protagonist. Of course, the credit scene of after the entirety of the game, that's after the fifth case, the end credit scene kind of leaves off a very ominous note for Edgeworth. So we have no clue what's coming. But the game sets it off nicely. He's a man who has a goal, who's ambitious, who fights for what he believes is right. Of course, towards the end, he realizes that whatever he thought was a sham, and that whatever he believed, yeah, it was all a sham. So He's questioning his entire purpose in life, and whatever he's been working for, was it all worth nothing? Was it all for naught? That's the kind of ending we're left with this character. It's obvious that he values the truth above everything else, and does hold Phoenix under certain some regard, clearly. No matter and the fact is, he makes it. Um, he's not able. He's socially awkward. He's not able to express things easily. So it shows that he's just um, I would say business minded, but this is not business. This is lawyer. So he's like just work oriented and not a social butterfly. But apparently, as you can see how things progressing in the fifth episode, even the detectives and all that, they come to an understanding, to an impasse that yeah, Edward might be a dick. He might be an ass to us all, and might be very haughty and might be like the god in the courtroom. But he's innocent no matter what. He honestly trusts the police force, and he believes what he says and what he presents in the court. So it's circumstances which have let him down. So I like that. I like that a lot. You're not saying he's the best, that is us all glorifying him, but at the same time, we are accepting his flaws, and we see that this guy is a character who's strong despite all his flaws being played against him. So naturally, we are curious to see where he goes on from this, considering everything. Now, I will talk about Emma's guy, okay? See, the thing about Emma is they added in the last case and they put a lot of gimmicks. So it's clearly understood that wherever she'll be, we'll be having a whole lot of new game gimmicks like the fingerprints and the luminol testing. Uh, Only thing is, like I mentioned over here, this thing was a DLC added before the release of Apollo Justice, the fourth game of the series. So naturally, we understand that okay, she won't affect, or her gimmicks won't affect things much over here at all, not for the main trilogy at least. But it gives us hope because we have possible insights and we can have an idea as to where we might see these gimmicks or where we might see her as a person. We can see that considering the amount of emphasis that she's got, that she wants to be a forensic scientist, we might see her as a brilliant forensic scientist in the future who is great, like superb. Or we can see her as a person who still wants to work but has her own flaws and she still lives in this little bubble. Or we might see her as a kid who's still, you know, just herself, like but just a few years ahead, not way into a job and all that yet. There's the equal opportunity, 50-50% chance. Pretty great. Um, as a person, we didn't get that much time with her, and Phoenix was in his own world with events, so we didn't really get to explore her character. But from what we got to see of her, she was bright, child, fun, free spirited, loves her sister a lot. So that's great. She's naive. She admires Edgeworth because he's pretty logical, and she likes that. It makes sense. Scientific girl. She prefers reasoning and logic rather than bluffs. So, not going to begrudge her or anything. I just like that character setup. It's not that everyone who comes to Phoenix has to love him and adore him. Then, the other characters are pretty much side characters, so I don't want to talk about them as much. So, I'm just going in order here. Next character, naturally, I'll have to talk about is Maya. Oh no, wait. Before Maya, let's talk about Mia, our ace ghost. Yeah, she's a brilliant person. We liked her lines and dialogues in between. And we know that she's coming as a spirit to spirit channeling, the Korean technique, to help us out. One thing that kind of irks me is that people keep saying that Phoenix is dependent on Mia. In case we haven't learned anything in this case, especially in the fifth episode, shows that he is able to do things on his own. Of course, it's not all entirely in his court. He needs, like how the third and the fifth case was set up, the prosecution had to understand. He made things so obvious, but he was not in any power to do anything because that's how shitty the legal system is. So Edgeworth had to butt in and help out. Uh, because that's how the procedure is. When everything was set rolling from our side, you can see how Phoenix was smart enough. Like, I'm pretty sure I kind of emphasized a bit on it. The way Phoenix phrases his sentences such that if by chance things turn in his favor, he can use it to the max. That's something I like a lot. Of course, here I'm going on off about Phoenix. If we're talking about Mia here, the fact that I'm talking about Phoenix here shows that he has managed to come out of Mia's hold. It's natural that he's kind of dependent on because he was a rookie lawyer. So yes, he does need help because literally our case one was his very first case. So Mia helping out makes perfect sense. The second case, he's doing it all on his own with everybody against him. And in the end, he himself got into trouble. So it makes perfect sense to have Mia help him out here. Of course, it was not required. If you just turn that receipt, it should have all made sense. Why couldn't we just turn that receipt? But, fine, fine. They just need an excuse to show Mia to us. And yeah, that's about it actually, because Mia interferes next time is in this case. And this one, she didn't do anything. Here she comes to help us out, yes, but Maya was a much more help to us. Edgeworth and Mia didn't do that much. It was more of Maya and Phoenix in this case. Okay, so oh no, I ended up clicking this. You know what? Uh, one sec. Never mind. Let's leave it here. I think this is a nice place to keep the screen on. So yeah, now let's talk about Maya, okay? The Fae who stole all of our hearts. She's pretty cool character, nice, free spirited again, yes, but amazing. She's a strong character. Think about it. Her sister died. No one is ready to help her out except for Phoenix, a man who, according to Maya, and yes, we saw Phoenix's monologue, suspected her right when he saw her as the murderer of her own sister. She was able to still hold it in. She was strong enough. And she decided to trust Phoenix. And once he proved himself to her, she decided to trust him. It's brilliant because she doesn't trust Edgeworth for obvious reasons. But because Phoenix trusted him, she was able to give him the benefit of a doubt and think about it. And he grew on her. She was ready to do things for his sake. Granted, this to help Phoenix's case against Edgeworth, but she understood where Edgeworth comes from. I like her a lot for that. She's her own person. She thinks for herself and she takes time to make her own decisions. Yes, Phoenix and Maya both are on the naive side. I will not deny that. In fact, it's kind of an annoying thing, but it's kind of an endearing factor too. Because if they weren't naive, we wouldn't have these cases. They would not have gone for these people. They would not have supported them. So I get it. Now, what else is there to speak about Maya? Not much yet. It's just that she is the one who's of a whole lot of help to us. If people said that Phoenix is dependent on Maya, here I would have to give a point to that. Because she did help out in a whole lot of cases. Except the fifth case. But you can see that he didn't take any case until Emma came barging in into his office. Because Maya was not around. That shows that he's kind of dependent. So naturally, since I've started talking about Phoenix, might as well just jump to our protagonist. This is a protagonist I liked a lot. Pretty great protagonist. Um, Before you talk about his spiky hair, let's look at Edgeworth, okay? And Maya. We don't question their fashion choices. We cannot point at Phoenix, okay? That's it. Pretty great dude. Like I mentioned quite a lot about Phoenix as I was talking about the other characters. So I don't think I need to go any further about this person. Just that we have seen him grow into a character. We know he's got his own goofy side. We know he's got a really sarcastic side from his monologues, which he doesn't let show until the fifth case where he has no patience at all. So we know that Phoenix has a limit. There's a time when he has no patience to give. and that's when he lets his sarcasm out and his cynicism at the same time. Yes, Phoenix is a cynic person. I do not know if that's the right word. He's got a cynicism. Okay, he's a cynic, and it shows even in the certain bits of the um not the fourth case, the third case, the trial parts. Uh, yeah, that the most you can make out that he's a bit cynical about things, but not as much. And in the fourth case, he's sarcastic, he is cynical, but not to the level as the third and the fifth case. Yeah, that's one thing I like to point out. That it did show up in the other cases though. Kameka is sarcastic, he's cynical, at the same time, on the other hand, he's pretty naive, he's trusting, it's trustworthy, and he is damn loyal. Like he's so loyal that he took a career based on to pay back a debt to Edgeworth. Yeah, I mentioned Edgeworth. And he was successful at it. Once he sets his eyes on something, he won't stop. That is something even Edgeworth has stated about Phoenix. And I agree. It is something even Maya has come to realize like, right at the start. Uh, so that's a brilliant thing right there. Now, that said, think we are done with our plots, are done with our characters. Naturally, I think we've reached like the half an hour mark. So that's great. I would just like to take about 10 to 15 minutes talking about the music. But before that, let me change our screen, okay? Yeah. So I've come back to this kind of a layout for the music. Now, naturally, when we're talking about the music, there's a whole lot of factor that comes into play. One such factor would be about whether it fits in, whether it doesn't. Now, that's an interesting point because most of the music in this game fit really well. I mean, it's got its own sound. I'm calling it the 8-bit sound, uh, but it's the typical sound of video game thing. But the music was great. It's of course naturally the music does get better along the series, but we're not here to talk about that part. We're here to talk about. I mean, I'm here to talk about the music of just this game alone. Now, out of all music, let me talk about the reminiscence tune. That is the tune which usually ends up playing at the start of each of the. I mean, not at the start, but at the most impactful part of each case. So each game had its not each case didn't have its own reminiscence music. Like for example, this case clearly didn't have any. However, this one clearly did. It in fact had two sad music, two reminiscence music. One was one is titled "Depressed Maya" because it was a song which played right when we found Mia's corpse, so it makes sense. The other song is the Reminiscent Sisters. That is a sad song whenever we think about. I mean, it's the Reminiscent song known as the Ballad of the Sisters. Basically, plays each time we talk about Mia and Maya. Fun fact though that this Reminiscence tune has actually soon become. It became the. Um, I mean, this Reminiscence turned into the ballad tune, which turned into Maya's theme music. Actually, makes sense actually because it's defining the moment when we first met Maya. Kind of signifies or highlights or brings us back to that moment. Now, in case you're not aware of how exactly the song is, um, well, maybe I can just play a small clip, I guess. But I am not sure about it if I can do it. Let's see. It's not Depressed Maya. I think it's called Broken Hearted Maya. Yeah, that's the one. Um, yeah, that's the tune. The other one is basically just reminiscence music, and naturally, it's a tune which just plays solely for Mia and Maya, like I keep saying. But hey, it's so as you can hear, that's the Ballet Sisters, and it's become Maya's theme actually. This game has actually one of my personal favorites, my favorite reminiscence theme of this game. Yeah, it's one of my favorite reminiscence themes of this game. It's my favorite, actually. It's at the top. I know many people would argue and they would say that they would prefer the another tune to it. And in fact, the tune which takes the second place is the tune which majority prefer as their favorite, the reminiscence of the DL6 incident. The tune whenever they talk or discuss about Gregory Edgeworth's death. Yeah, this is the tune which quite a lot of people like, and I won't deny it's a pretty nice one, it's a pretty sad one, but something about this reminiscence, light and shadow at the film studio, that just, I mean, takes me, I mean, like affects me a whole lot more than the DL6 music. Heartbroken Maya and Turbo Sisters Ballad, they are pretty nice too, but not as great as these two, in my opinion. Another reminiscence theme that was brought up in this case is the one of the elementary school trial. You know, the one where Phoenix was held in trial, his childhood flashback. It is actually also at the top three, actually, over there. My another favorite of mine. In case you haven't noticed it, it's pretty similar to Broken Hearted Maya and Light and Shadow at the film studio, as well as DL6. It's like a mix of these three into this one theme, which I like a lot. And plus, it's related to the Phoenix's point in life. I mean, an important moment in Phoenix's life. So all of that factor kind of gets to me, I guess. I like Steam a lot. This one also had its own reminiscence theme, and as the SL9 incident reminiscence. If I'm being honest, I am not very fond of this theme in particular, this reminiscence. It just didn't do it for me. It wasn't that great. It was just the same set of notes being repeated and dragged out. So yeah, it's one of my least favorite reminiscence. Let me know about the music. Which one you guys liked of the reminiscence? Now, I won't get about with the music that plays during the investigations and the music that plays during the cross-examination and the music that no wait, not the cross, the one which plays when you're in the lobby and the end music. We don't need to address those. It's pretty simple, it's pretty straightforward, and it's common to all of them. What we'll talk about is the cross-examination theme because I just want to point out that it's pretty brilliant for a first. I mean, like this game had a pretty um, brilliant one, if I'm not wrong. This is your normal, straightforward cross-examination tune. that keeps playing. It's called the moderator. Note for the future games also, this tune, whatever tune plays during your cross examination at first, is known as the moderator. Once you once you say hold it or objection and you show some evidence or something, or you find something, you get to the epic part, and that is known as the allegro. Here, the music takes up pace and it goes on faster because shit is getting real. Things are going to get going over here. So that's pretty cool, actually. Yeah, you just have the moderator and the allegro. I just thought of pointing it out because in later games you can always take note of it. I mean, it's pretty cool. I like that shift. I'm pretty sure I must have pointed it out in this game, or maybe in the future games you'll find me pointing out as the music changes. Like, damn, I like this a whole lot. It's a thing which sets things rolling for us. And of course, once you have your main objection and you get the game going, we have our objection theme that is known as pursuit. We basically call it pursuit, the objection, because you're looking for pursuit for justice or pursuit for truth or whatever. So yeah, it's known as the corner theme in this particular game. Pretty cool, isn't it? I like it a whole lot because it gets you all pumped up and you're like, yes, I know what's going on. Yes. This is an orchestral version. Which is pretty cool. In fact, I would recommend you guys to check out the orchestral version of the entire soundtrack. I'll put the link in the description. Yeah, with that, I think I'm done with all the things I wanted to show you guys and address over here. So, we're done. Maybe I know you must be thinking about some of the other music themes, like maybe there is something on the other I've left out, but I don't think it's something which needs me to discuss or talk about it here. You can mention about it in the comments and we can get back. Till then, ta-ta, and hopefully you guys will follow and check out the gameplay of the second. The gameplay of the second game of the series. So, yeah, thanks. Bye bye.